Picture this for a second: mutilated hikers, seashell bombs, mind-control drugs, and even a cyborg kitten. Yeah, the Cold War was wild, scary, and honestly unbelievable sometimes. What's up, everyone? I'm Marcus, and today we're diving into some Cold War stories that sound fake, but actually happened, ranking from hard to believe all the way to no way. This era wasn't just about nukes and speeches. It was packed with secret plots, dumb mistakes, and moments so weird they still confuse historians decades later. Let's start with a man who seemed impossible to kill. A leader who dodged death so many times it almost feels like fate stepped in personally. Fidel Castro, the communist leader of Cuba, was one of America's biggest headaches during the Cold War, and the United States really wanted him gone. After college, Castro leaned hard into extreme leftist ideas and spent years fighting right-wing governments across the Caribbean and South America before seizing power in Cuba. In 1959, he took full control of the country and turned it into a communist state, which immediately put him on the United States' bad side. America hated communism, and Castro didn't just support it. He welcomed Soviet influence right into the Western Hemisphere. Things hit a breaking point when Cuba allowed the Soviet Union to place nuclear missiles less than 100 miles from Florida. That single move made Castro public enemy number one, and the CIA decided he couldn't stay alive if America wanted to feel safe. Here's where things get crazy. The US government tried to assassinate Fidel Castro over 600 times, and somehow he survived every single attempt. And I don't mean normal attempts either. I mean the CIA went full cartoon villain trying to take this man out. They tried poisoning his cigars with deadly toxins, hoping his favorite habit would finally finish the job. When that failed, they planted tiny explosives inside seashells and placed them in spots where Castro loved to scuba dive. Another plan involved lining his diving suit with tuberculosis bacteria, which somehow also didn't work. At one point, the CIA even tried something petty, slipping a toxic chemical into his shoes to make his hair and beard fall out. The idea was that losing his iconic beard would ruin his image and authority, because apparently embarrassment was plan B. None of it worked, not even close, and Castro lived all the way to 90 years old, dying peacefully from natural causes. If survival had a leaderboard, Fidel Castro would be sitting comfortably at number one, undefeated and unbothered. Now let's talk about something that sounds like a conspiracy theory, but turned out to be horrifyingly real. MKUltra was a secret CIA program designed to break people as minds and control human behavior during the Cold War. The goal was simple on paper: weaken enemies, force confessions, and gain control during interrogations. The problem was how they went about it, because many test subjects had no idea they were even part of an experiment. A huge number of the people tested were American citizens who never gave consent and never knew what was happening to them. The CIA believed fear and paranoia were tools, so instead of asking people to participate, they just used them. The experiments focused on two main things: extreme interrogation techniques and heavy drug use, sometimes at the same time. They used hypnosis, isolation, sensory deprivation, and verbal abuse to make people more suggestible and easier to manipulate. Professional psychologists and hypnotists were brought in, many of whom didn't even know the full truth behind the project. Then came the drugs, and this is where things went completely off the rails. The CIA secretly gave people substances like heroin, meth, morphine, and especially LSD without warning them first. College students, professors, prisoners, hospital patients, and even soldiers were all used as test subjects. Some were told it was mental health research, others weren't told anything at all before being dosed. They monitored how these drugs affected memory, behavior, emotions, and physical performance, looking for control. Eventually, they even started drugging their own CIA agents without consent, turning coworkers into guinea pigs. When MKUltra was finally exposed in the 1970s, the public was furious, and Congress stepped in to shut it down. Now let's jump to one of the most embarrassing moments in Soviet military history, starring a teenager with a tiny airplane. On May 28, 1987, people in Moscow watched a small, single-engine plane land shockingly close to Red Square. Everyone expected spies, soldiers, or sabotage, but instead out stepped a skinny German teenager named Matthias Rust. He was only 19 years old and carried a handwritten manifesto calling for world peace. Rust had flown illegally through multiple countries, crossed Soviet airspace, and avoided military defenses by pure luck and mistakes. He rented a small Cessna plane, flew around northern Europe, then lied to air traffic control before turning east toward Moscow. Despite being spotted on radar and tracked by missiles, confusion and misidentifications let him pass again and again. At one point, Soviet defenses even labeled his plane as friendly, letting a foreign teenager fly straight to the Kremlin. Rust landed, signed autographs, got arrested, and accidentally exposed massive flaws in Soviet air defense systems. The embarrassment led to top military officials being fired and pushed Soviet leadership toward openness and change. And we're only getting started because the next stories somehow get even stranger. Now we reach one of the strangest spy ideas ever approved. And yes, this actually made it past multiple meetings and budgets without anyone stopping it. The project was called Acoustic Kitty, and it involved turning an actual living cat into a mobile spying device. During the Cold War, the United States wanted every possible advantage over the Soviet Union, even if the idea sounded completely ridiculous. The CIA believed cats were perfect spies because they could wander freely without raising suspicion near important Soviet officials. The plan was to secretly modify cats with microphones and transmitters, then send them near conversations involving sensitive Soviet information. In theory, the cat would casually hang around while recording classified discussions and sending them back to American intelligence. To make this happen, a veterinarian performed a long surgery that basically turned the cat into a tiny cyborg. A microphone was placed inside the cat's ear canal. A transmitter was implanted near its skull, and an antenna was hidden in its fur. After surgery, the CIA tried to train the cat to walk specific routes and ignore distractions like food, noise, or other animals. That training alone took months, because surprise, cats don't listen and don't care about national security. After years of work and roughly $20 million spent, the CIA finally decided it was time to test their spy cat. The mission was simple: get the cat to eavesdrop on two men sitting on a park bench near a Soviet building. The cat was released, walked into the street, and was immediately hit and killed by a taxi. That was it. Mission over. Project done. No dramatic chase, no secrets captured, just instant failure. The CIA quietly ended the Acoustic Kitty project, admitting animals were too unpredictable for espionage work. $20 million gone, one tragic cat, and a Cold War story that still sounds fake today. Now we move to the darkest and most chilling mystery on this list, one that still keeps people awake at night. In 1959, 9 experienced hikers led by Igor Dyatlov set out into the freezing Ural Mountains in northern Soviet territory. These weren't amateurs, they were skilled, prepared, and confident in their ability to survive harsh winter conditions. Originally there were 10 hikers, but one turned back early due to illness, a choice that would later save his life. The group planned to reach a mountain and send a message confirming their return by February 12th. When that date passed with no word, concern turned into panic and search teams were sent out. On February 26th, rescuers found the group's tent, damaged and strangely set up, slashed open from the inside. Footprints led away from the tent toward the forest, showing the hikers fled in a hurry, many without shoes or coats. 2 bodies were found near the trees, barefoot and nearly naked, frozen to death in the snow. 3 more bodies were discovered between the forest and the campsite, initially blamed on hypothermia. At first, investigators suggested an avalanche or animal attack forced the group to flee their shelter. That explanation fell apart when the final 4 bodies were found deeper in the woods weeks later. These hikers had severe internal injuries, crushed skulls, broken chests, and trauma compared to a car crash. Strangely, there were very few external wounds, making the injuries even harder to explain. One woman was missing her tongue and eyeballs, and no clear reason was ever found for how that happened. Some clothing showed traces of radiation, adding another terrifying layer to the mystery. Theories exploded, ranging from avalanches, secret military weapons tests, and even experimental Soviet explosives. One theory suggests parachute mines exploded above them, causing massive internal damage without visible external injuries. If true, the Soviet government would have every reason to cover it up completely. To this day, no single explanation answers all the questions surrounding what happened at Dyatlov Pass. Why cut the tent from the inside? Why flee half-naked? And what caused such brutal injuries without a clear source? The case was officially closed with vague answers, leaving families and researchers with nothing but guesses. And that's the Cold War for you, secrets buried deep, truths hidden behind fear, power, and silence. If these stories prove anything, it's that real history is often stranger than anything Hollywood could dream up. I'm Marcus, and if this made you question reality just a little, then yeah, mission accomplished. Like, subscribe, and share.